In continuation with the environment, let's today discuss in our video number 26, sustainable development. The concern for future generations alone can make development last forever. The development to enhance our current living styles without concern for the future will only deplete resources and degrade environment at a pace that is bound to result in both environmental and economic crisis. Hence, sustainable development should be adopted for secure livelihoods of our future generations. So let's understand what is sustainable development. It refers to the development strategy to meet the needs of the present generation without compromising the needs of the future generation. And it enables all generations, whether present and or future, to make the best out of the resources. Now, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, the UNCED, defines this sustainable development as the development that meets the need of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. Now, what's very important over here is the term that is used over here, needs. And whose needs? The needs of the future generations. So these two are very important. Let's read it again. Development that meets the need of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. So we are thinking of the needs of the present generation as well as the needs of the future generation. And the needs of the future generation are most important over here when we talk about this sustainable development. Right? Now, when we talk about needs, we understand that it is related to the distribution of resources for the present as well as the future generations. Right? So, meeting the needs of all requires redistribution of resources and hence is a moral issue. This is called as intergenerational equity. Edward Beber defined this sustainable development as the one which is directly concerned with increasing the material standard of living of the poor at the grassroots level in terms of increased income, real income, educational services, healthcare services, sanitation, water supply, etc. Or can we put it like this? Sustainable development aims at decreasing the absolute poverty of the poor by providing lasting and secure livelihoods that minimize resource depletion, environmental degradation, cultural disruption, and social instability. So there are so many things that come into the picture when we talk about sustainable development. It talks about increase in the income, it talks about better educational services, healthcare services, sanitation, water supply, which are lasting and which can secure the livelihoods, thereby also minimizing the resource depletion, environmental degradation, and so many other things. Right? Then what are the steps to attain this sustainable development? The Brundtland Commission emphasizes on protecting the future generations. It says at least we should have or we should leave to the next generation a stock of quality of life assets, no less than what we have inherited. See, today we talk of what we are left with, what our past generations or ancestors did to us, isn't it? The deforestation and so many other things, and the quality of life that we are leading today, it is much, much worse than what our ancestors enjoyed. But don't you think that we must leave to our future generations at least what we are enjoying today? No less of what we are enjoying today or what we have inherited today. So, what we can do is conserve and promote natural resources, preservation of regenerative capacity of the world's natural ecosystem, and avoiding the imposition of added costs or risks on future generations. So there is a lot we can do. We should conserve and promote the natural resources, preserve the regenerative capacity, and also avoid the imposition of added costs on the future generations. So we have to take care of these three aspects. But then, according to Herman Daly, what we can do is to limit the human population to a level within the carrying capacity of the environment. Carrying capacity we have learnt in the previous videos. And limiting this population to a level is compared to the plimsoll line of the ship, which is its load limit mark. In the absence of this plimsoll line for an economy, human scale goes beyond the carrying capacity of the earth. And what it does is it deviates from the sustainable development, right? Then the second one is technological progress, which should be input efficient and not input consuming. Then third says renewable resources should be extracted on a sustainable basis. We learned what are renewable resources. Resources that can be renewed, that won't get exhausted even after use, right? So they should be extracted on a sustainable basis. That means we must give the earth some time to renew itself. Then for the non-renewable resources, the rate of depletion should not exceed the rate of creation of renewable substitutes. Then the fifth one says inefficiencies arising from pollution should be corrected. So we need to take certain steps that would prevent these inefficiencies arising from pollution. Some possible strategies to achieve sustainable development in India, we'll discuss them about now, are the use of non-conventional sources of energy. What are conventional sources? The sun energy, wind power, these are the conventional sources of energy. These sources of energy are cleaner and greener energy sources. The non-conventional sources of energy are the thermal and the hydropower plants. Now these have both adverse environmental impacts. The thermal power plants emit large quantities of carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. So what does greenhouse gas do? It increases the temperature of the earth, leading to global warming. It also produces fly ash, which if not properly can cause pollution of water bodies, land, and other components of the environment. Then the hydro projects or hydroelectric projects, these inundate forests and interfere with the natural flow of water in the catchment areas and the river basins, right? Then the second one is the LPG and gobar gas in the rural areas. Now these are supposed to be clean fuels as they reduce pollution, and they are also available at subsidized rates and also through easy loans. Now in the rural areas, households generally use wood, dung cake, other biomass as fuel. But this has certain adverse implications, like, the deforestation, reduction in green cover, wastage of cattle dung, air pollution, and so on. So to rectify this, LPG and gobar gas is used. So what happens in a gobar gas plant is the gobar or the cattle dung is used, which produces in these plants, which produces this methane gas. This gas is provided to the households as fuel to cook food, etc., which is a cleaner gas and would produce no residues, no harmful gases, right? Then the slurry that is left behind in the plants is used as organic fertilizers in the farms, plus it also acts as the soil conditioner. Then CNG, that is compressed natural gas, was first introduced in Delhi as the public transport system, which reduced pollution to a very, very large extent. Of course, CNG is now being used in other automobiles also. That is a cleaner gas. The next is wind power. This wind power can be used in places where, there is wind usually very high, and these windmills can provide electricity without any adverse impact on the environment. So what happens in these windmills is small turbines are used which move with the wind, and electricity is generated. Okay, but here the problem is the initial cost is very high, but the benefits are um, such that high cost gets easily absorbed. Then the fifth one is the solar power, in which photovoltaic cells are used. Photo meaning sunlight, and voltage, we know, electricity. So these cells, what they do is they capture the solar energy and convert it into electricity. So that's why they are called as photovoltaic cells. Now these solar power or photovoltaic cells from which we can generate electricity is useful for remote areas where, you know um, places where supply of power through grid or power lines is either not possible, or it proves very costly. So this technique is also totally free from pollution, right? Then the sixth one is mini Heidel plants. Heidel refers to generation of power from water. So this mini Heidel power plants are used in mountainous regions where there are perennial streams. The streams flow throughout the year, and the power that is generated over here is through small turbines where, they rotate, and through the streams the power is generated, which meets the local demands. Okay, this avoids the transmission loss. Why? Because for the need for large scale transmission towers and cables, it can avoid the transmission loss. Okay. Then the seventh one is traditional knowledge and practices. What is this traditional knowledge and practices? See, in our the ancestors who used many agricultural practices, healthcare systems, transportation, housing, etc. They all used those systems or those practices which were environment friendly. But now, due to development, we have drifted away from the traditional systems, and then caused a large scale damage to the environment and also to the rural heritage. So now what is happening is that we are going back to those systems, okay, which are environment friendly, which are free from side effects, and there is no large scale industrial and chemical processing involved. Eighth is biocomposting. To increase the agricultural production in the past so many years, some decades, there has been a neglect of the compost, and we have switched over to the chemical fertilizers just to increase the production. So this has an adverse effect, and the productive land has been affected, water bodies have been affected, isn't it? And there is a lot of chemical contamination, and demand for irrigation also has gone up year after year. So, what are the farmers doing? They are again going back to the old systems. That means the compost that is made from the organic waste is being used in the farms. The cattle dung is used as manure and soil conditioner. And also, vermicompost that is made out of the earthworms are being used as biocomposts in the farms today. So, this process is now being widely used in all over the country. Pest control is the ninth one. So, with the advent of this green revolution, it led to the use of more and more of chemical pesticides for higher production, which has caused adverse impacts like pollution of water bodies, land, and also groundwater contamination and contamination of food products like milk, meat, etc. So, now what are we doing? To meet this challenge, efforts have been initiated for better methods of pest control. That is, use of neem trees. Pesticides are made out of these neem trees, which are very effective pesticides and also environment friendly. The other methods are mixed cropping patterns in the fields. Okay, that means or rotation of crops, and then growing different crops in consecutive years, and use of animals in pest control. How there is an awareness program that spreads about these various birds and animals which help in controlling the pests, like snakes, lizards, owls, peacocks. Okay, these animals and birds, they prey upon the pests and insects and help in pest control. So the snakes, as we know, you must have learnt in your lower classes about the food chain, where they prey upon the vermin and other pests and small insects. Like suppose, let's take the example of snakes. They prey upon the rats, mice, and various other pests, and thereby control the pests in the farms. So that comes under the biopest control. Certain other measures to help achieve sustainable development are recycling the waste into compost and manure, creating awareness among masses about rational use of environmental resources. Both producers and consumers should be conscious to be environment friendly. In conclusion, we can say that sustainable development aims at promoting the kind of development that minimizes environmental problems and meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs.